So you know how a few videos ago I mentioned just how hard shiny Beldums were to chain and catch? Well, just to taunt us players, the episode of the anime that's set to air tomorrow in Japan, tomorrow being March 5th, 2009, for those of you who are not watching this the day I put it on YouTube, which is the majority of you, but yeah, in that episode, there's supposed to be a shiny Metagross. Yeah, just to taunt us. Yeah, they're like, you want that shiny Metagross, huh? You want it. Well, too bad. Nah, you can't have it. It's ours. Incidentally, that Metagross is going to be the 8th shiny Pokemon to appear in the anime. Before that, there was a shiny Magneton, a shiny Magikarp, Gyarados, Noctowl, Shuckle, Donphin, and Swellow. Now I know what you're thinking, and no, I didn't learn that list by heart. I was just checking it on a piece of paper while I was playing. Yeah, I'm good like that. But back to the game now, you may have noticed, but I'm using Fly quite a bit to take down the Pokemon in this area because, well, naturally they resist Ice Beam, so I have to resort to using Fly. Now, it does the job pretty well in game since, well, the computer opponents don't like to switch. They do switch on very rare occasions, mostly in the Elite Four, but for the rest, they don't switch very much, so it's all to my advantage, so I can use Fly no problem. But I think everyone knows by now how junk moves like Fly and Dig and Dive are competitively. But back in the early days, people thought quite highly of Fly, and for all the wrong reasons, of course. The most common misconception about Fly is that it gives you a free turn. Well, the obvious rebuttal is a free turn of what? Now let's assume a best case scenario where you're faster. Your Pokemon uses Fly, your opponent does its attack, it misses, but then second turn, it switches to something that resists Fly. So you do not a whole lot of damage, and you've allowed your opponent to switch for almost for free to a Pokemon that has the upper hand on you instead. And it gets a lot worse when you're slower. The opponent lands a hit on you. First turn, you fly into the sky. A second turn, he switches to the Pokemon that has the advantage on you, and you do not a whole lot of damage. Now I'm gonna stop here. My birds can't fly me back. I thought one of the coolest and most advertised things about HMs in-game, when I mean advertisement, of course, because there are several NPCs to remind you that, is that you can use HMs on the field even when the Pokemon is dead. So why can't his Fearows and Pidgeotto not fly him back? How does that work? How can I fly on a dead Pokemon but not him? Well, maybe in early development they intended for you not to be able to use HMs with a dead Pokemon, but that means sometimes you're going to get stranded somewhere like that little isle where the guy was just now. Imagine if it was me that lost my Articuno and I can't fly back, and I lose my Krabby and I can't surf either. So now what? Or even funnier, my Krabby dies when I'm using it in battle while I'm surfing. What am I gonna do? Swim back? Everybody knows you can't swim in Pokemon. You're too much of a wuss to even set the little tip of your toe in the water. Then again, I'm in no position to talk. I am completely unable to float in the water. I drop like a rock, so naturally I don't even know how to swim. So yeah, who am I to talk? But back to that Krabby thing, it makes me think one of the biggest and best known impossibilities about this game is that, well, I'm surfing on my Krabby, okay? But what if I send out my Krabby in battle? Well, first, it's kind of awkward because it's already out of its Pokeball, technically, when I send it in battle, but then I chuck the Pokeball and Krabby comes out again, and it's able to attack while I'm on it. How does that work? And as for the getting stranded thing, well, they really went the extra mile to make sure it's impossible to get stranded. Now, I know that it's possible, but you have to really do it on purpose, else you won't ever be able to get stranded if you don't specifically try to do it. But yeah, they really went out of their way to make sure you can't get stranded. What about the no deleting HM moves naturally? You have to take it to the move deleter, and the first move deleter, if I remember, was in gold, silver, crystal. Or was it crystal only? I don't really remember, but I know it's somewhere in the second generation. And there's of course the thing about, well, you can't send the Pokemon with an HM move through the PAL Park. So now I'm done with Route 20, and no, I'm not heading back to the back entrance of the Seafoam Islands. I'm just going to heal, and as I said I was going to do, I'm going to head out to Route 21 to beat all the trainers there. Now, before I got interrupted in my train of thought by that guy who said I can't fly back, well, I was talking about how fly sucked, especially if you were slower. So I was about to say, I think, well, what it brings you overall if you use fly and you're slower. The opponent gets a hit on you and a free switch, almost a free switch, while you do only a slight amount of damage. And that is most definitely a losing trade. And that is why people quickly learned that fly sucked balls. Especially fly in the first generation, since it had 70 power and 95 accuracy, whereas dig at least had 100 power and 100 accuracy, the same as Earthquake. But no one used dig because Earthquake was vastly superior, since it only took one turn, and dig is subject to the same problems as fly. Screw the higher power and accuracy, it's still not worth it. And then they nerfed its power to 60 in Gold, Silver, Crystal as if it needed it. And when Dive was introduced in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, it was 60 power as well. But in Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, well, Fly, Dive, and Dig all gained 20 power. They went up to 90 and 80 respectively. Not that they're any more worth it than they used to be, aside from some novelty Dive Ludicolo sets, but maybe by increasing Fly's power to 90, maybe they intended to make it into a more viable alternative to Aerial Ace, but it's still a complete and utter failure. Yeah, Aerial Ace has pitiful power, but I think you'll all agree with me that Fly's two-turn thing is way more devastating to the move's usefulness. And yeah, as for Dig, it's still weaker than Earthquake, and Dive, well, it's now similar to Waterfall, but without the flinch chance, and it takes 2 turns. So that's out of the question too, unless, as I said earlier, you want to take advantage of leftovers and Rain Dish and everything on Ludicolo. Oh, and we can't forget Solar Beam without Sunny Day and Sky Attack, where you're guaranteed to leave yourself open to a hit on the first turn, and then the opponent switches in a Pokemon to take the hit, so you do not much, your opponent still gets the switch, and Swift can hit through Fly. I didn't remember that Swift is never used. Well, Aerial Ace is sometimes, but moves like Fly, Dig, and Dive, as I said, they're never, ever, ever used. So I honestly didn't remember that because I see it happen so little competitively. Well, so little. Maybe I should say never, it'd be more accurate. But as I was about to say, using Sky Attack or Solar Beam without Sunny Day has the same end result as a slow Fly / Dig / Dive. You deal a minor amount of damage in exchange for some more damage, and your opponent also gets a favorable switch. So that's it for now. Join me next time for some exciting aquatic adventures. Isn't that right, Ocean? The Ocean says yes.